Adrian, and today we're taking an in-depth look at the Mandalorian's fighting style. In the lawless aftermath of the Galactic Empire's collapse, an armored bounty hunter, known as a Mandalorian, takes on a well-paying yet cryptic assignment. That assignment turns out to be an adorable creature that looks just like Baby Yoda. Together they embark on several adventures. The goal of these videos is to figure out just how many fighting styles our combatant is familiar with by analyzing the specific moves featured in their footage and pairing them with the martial art or fighting style which most aptly represents those moves. There's a huge amount of crossover in martial arts techniques, and a technique that is present in one fighting style may also be present in another, such as a roundhouse kick being present in multiple martial arts. But in order to not give combatants multiple fighting styles for the sake of variety, I've instead opted to list the most apt fighting style that best represents that particular character, technique, or set of techniques. Also, there are various degrees of knowing a fighting style. And although one may know elements of something, this doesn't mean I'm saying the fighter I'm talking about is a master in every style I mention. Since we're dealing with a character from Star Wars lore, I will further clarify that in this video we are not going to be analyzing him through the lens of fictitious fighting styles in Star Wars, such as various lightsaber forms or their version of hand-to-hand combat known as Terakazi. If you'd like to learn more about those fictitious fighting styles, you're welcome to check out How Many Fighting Styles Does Darth Vader Know? In the Mandalorian's case, we're going to be analyzing his techniques from a real-world standpoint and not incorporate any fictitious fighting styles. I highly recommend watching all seasons of The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, as this video will analyze footage from said series. I will try and keep plot and story details to an absolute minimum, but do take this as your spoiler warning. Fighting styles that The Mandalorian may know in any other form of media, such as novels or comics, do not count. Without further ado, let's take a look at how many fighting styles The Mandalorian knows. The Mandalorian, or Mando as he's also called in the show, and I won't reveal his true name to not spoil it for you in case you haven't seen it, is well versed in hand-to-hand combat. And being a bounty hunter, he has to be, as he's going to get himself into situations where he will very likely have to fight his way out. His fighting style thus needs to be quick, pragmatic, and able to make good use of his blaster and armor. First up, we got a style that is hard-hitting and perfectly suited for dealing with and delivering multiple strikes, and that is karate. Karate, or karate, is a Japanese striking martial art that uses punching, kicking, knee and elbow strikes, along with open-handed techniques such as knife hands and palm strikes. Mando exhibits a couple techniques from this style, from how he blocks to how he punches to even how he kicks. Let's start with how he blocks this incoming strike from Ahsoka. He is executing what is known as a rising block in karate, where you use your forearm to block the incoming hit. This is doubly useful for Mando, as his Beskar armor cannot be cut through by a lightsaber. He also delivers punches with a karate influence in these instances. Note how his non-punching arm briefly retracts by his waist, something readily seen in the push-pull style of punching in karate. Basic elbow strikes are also part of karate's repertoire of techniques, including these thrown by Mando. And perhaps the biggest indication of karate training can be seen in his fighting stance right here. Note how his arms are tucked in with his hands hovering in front of him. That's indicative of karate training. Mando also executes techniques typically found in karate, including this low front kick, a front kick from the floor, a back kick to protect the little guy by getting him out of the fight, and a quick crescent kick right here. But most importantly of all, he executes a kick that has achieved a legendary status on this channel for just how incredibly popular it is with virtually every character known in fiction. You're probably already saying its name before even seeing it, and you're correct. We're talking about the Mando executes this technique on several occasions, as a matter of fact. He uses it against prison guards as well as stormtroopers, and when he's in disguise. He even finds a way to modify it by throwing it as he's descending with his jetpack to immediately knock out a guard, as well as throwing an extremely low push kick in this instance. The kick is seen in karate as well as other martial arts, like taekwondo, and it's executed by lifting your knee and then extending your leg in a pushing motion. However, sometimes Mando uses striking techniques from other martial arts, and one of those is boxing. Boxing is a style focused on 4 core punching techniques: the jab, cross, hook, and uppercut. Mando is seen throwing several of these punches in this altercation, as well as during his fight with Cara Dune. Here we see him moving like a boxer to avoid Cara's attack, then quickly counterattacking her. He later throws an uppercut followed by a hook. You can also use your forearms to block in boxing, just like Mando does right here. Judo is a Japanese martial art where the objective is to either throw or take down the opponent to the ground. In several of Judo's techniques, you use your opponent's momentum and strength against them. In Mando's case, he takes this to heart. When dealing with this opponent who is much stronger and bigger than him, he resorts to outsmarting him with Judo on his side. As he leans in with a choke, Mando executes this technique known as a tomo nage in judo. Traditionally, you grip the opponent high and fall backwards into a roll. Once the opponent is off balance, you plant a foot on them and flip them over you. Mando also executes variations of the ponceo nage. Traditionally, you trap the bicep in between the elbow, forearm, and shoulder. You then throw your opponent over you. In Mando's case, he drops his body considerably in this variation. It's also known as a drop ponceo nage. Now that you've seen this judo technique, you can appreciate how he applies the same concepts to this situation here. He's trying to get an item he needs from the droid, so he uses his grappling line, more on that later, to bring the droid over to him. After this moment, notice how he turns in the same way as if he were about to execute an ponceo nage. But since the arm holding the weapon is up against the door, instead of flipping the droid over him, he simply breaks part of the arm off. Besides judo's throwing techniques, known as nage waza, judo also has a comprehensive amount of ground grappling techniques, known as katame waza. Though the Mandalorian does not regularly choose to fight on the ground, as he knows he could be overwhelmed by other opponents around him, when he's fighting Cara, he demonstrates he knows what he's doing, as he quickly flips the situation on her, literally and figuratively, due to his skills in katame waza within judo. The Mandalorian is brought to life by 3 people who wear the suit: Pedro Pascal, as well as his 2 stunt doubles, Lateef Crowder and Brendan Wayne. Lateef Crowder is an accomplished martial artist whose background lies in capoeira, so it was no surprise to see capoeira techniques make it into the show. First up is this very low roundhouse kick thrown from the ground, also known as a martelo de negativa in capoeira. And just by the way he moves around his opponents in several points on the show, you can see the capoeira influence, as maintaining that circular movement within capoeira is key. But besides his hand-to-hand techniques, the Mandalorian is adept at using many weapons in combat, and there are several styles within the umbrella art of ninjutsu that perfectly line up with these weapons. For an in-depth explanation of the 18 distinct disciplines within ninjutsu, check out my Arkham Batman fighting styles video. Kaiko Jutsu relates to pyrotechnics and explosives. In Mando's case, one of his weapons is his Vambrace flamethrower. He uses it in several instances on the show to great effect. He's also very adept at using explosive weaponry, whether it be placing explosives or using them like makeshift grenades. He even employs gas grenades to obscure his opponent's vision. Mando also uses a weapon known as a whistling birds. They are small guided munitions that are able to be simultaneously deployed. All of these weapons involve pyrotechnics and explosives and fit perfectly in Kaiko Jutsu. The Mandalorian is also very adept at using his vibro blade as a throwing knife. For this, we turn to Shuriken Jutsu, or quite literally the art of throwing shuriken. Whereas ninjas would throw star-shaped blades, Mando throws his own blade, but the technique and execution remain the same. Mando's grappling line is also very useful within the series, as he uses it to incapacitate and trap his opponents in several creative ways. In real life, there is no such weapon just yet, but the way that Mando shoots out his line and brings in his victims recalls a very famous yellow ninja, doesn't it? The ninja sickle, or chain and sickle weapon, has its own dedicated art within ninjutsu called Kusarigama Jutsu, and since the Mandalorian is using extremely similar principles of said weapon, we will be pairing it with that art within ninjutsu. There are moments within the series that the Mandalorian cannot afford to be detected, and for that he turns to his skills in Shinobi Iri, or the art of stealth and infiltration. Note how adeptly he can hide himself while protecting Baby Yoda, and still get the drop on his enemy when he needs to. Mando is seen to be very adept at using weapons that resemble the bow, a staff weapon used in several martial arts, and this pairs perfectly with Bojutsu, the style dedicated to using such a weapon within ninjutsu. This video could not be complete without addressing the Mandalorian's projectile weapons in his arsenal, and that is due to his proficiency in combat shooting. He uses his trusty IB-94 blaster pistol and his Ambin Phase Pulse Blaster, a type of disruptor sniper rifle. He is one of the most adept marksmen in the Star Wars universe, able to successfully land shots from very far distances, accurately fire multiple targets in close proximity, and can even quick draw his blaster. He can easily fire turrets when he needs to as well. In conclusion, how many fighting styles does a Mandalorian know? They are karate, boxing, judo, capoeira, Kayaku Jutsu, Shuriken Jutsu, Kusarigama Jutsu, Bojutsu, Shinobi Iri, and combat shooting, for a grand total of 10 fighting styles. I'd like to thank each one of my Patreon members, as their contribution helped in the making of this video. If you'd like to contribute and appear in the credits in the future, my Patreon page is Godzilla Rex, and it's in the description below. Thanks for watching. What do you think of The Mandalorian? What other characters should I analyze next? Let me know in the comments below, subscribe for more awesome videos, and see you next time.